I know it's been a very long time. A lot of things have changed, that's why I've been kind of putting it off. As far as these tiers go, let me just explain the metric by which I'm going to be ranking these. And this is based on basically what level of investment should you put into it after buying it. In the case of F, it's just like you shouldn't buy it whatsoever. But then D is like you buy it, but then you don't upgrade it. C is things that you could upgrade if you want. B is stuff that you should probably rank up once or twice. A is stuff that is usable late game at max, but it's not like top meta. And then S is the stuff that's like actual top meta, the stuff that you should definitely max out if you get it. So yeah, now that that is set, let's just start from left to right, top to bottom. First up, Aegis. I'm gonna put this in S. It is very, very good. It fell off a bit after Seeker, but with mods, it's a lot more tanky even inside the dome. So I think it is definitely still a top meta mech. Not at the very top, but we'll leave it there for now. Next up, Arachnos. Technically, you get this for free in a derby event. So you probably will get it, but definitely don't buy it. If for whatever reason you don't end up getting it from a derby, don't buy it. Next up is Ares. Ares is really decent, but in the very next Gear Hub tier, you can immediately get access to Aegis. So like, there's no point in ranking it up past rank 3. So once you, it's worth getting. I think it even costs credits. But then, you know, once you get it, just leave it where it is. Bastion. Bastion is another S tier mech. I would put it quite possibly just below Aegis, with things being more survivable after mods. It's a bit less likely that you'll be able to kill everything inside your EMP radius, which is what, you know, Bastion was really good at. Get close to enemies. And, you know, if you have your shield up, then they basically, they have two options. Either break your shield and get EMP'd and then die, or just don't try to ignore you, try to get away, and probably just die anyway. So, you know, that made Bastion a really good aggressive tank. But a lot of mechs will actually survive an EMP duration from it. Still, though, really good because EMP is just kind of broken. Next up is Brickhouse. I'm going to put Brickhouse in C. It is definitely one that you could upgrade if you wanted to, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's definitely worth getting because it's, I think, the only legendary mech that costs credits, so that's just kind of decent. And since most of the good tanks are legendary and cost kind of an arm and a leg, it can kind of serve as a pseudo tank when you have like an Aegis and a Brickhouse. Next up is Cheetah. I do like Cheetah, hashtag Cheetah Gang, but I'm going to put this in F. Not worth buying, but more worth buying than Arachnos. Next up is Eclipse. Eclipse is still an S, arguably more of an S than it used to be, because it used to die to like anything radius, but with mods around it can actually, you know, it can take some hits, and that makes it really nice. Though I would say, generally speaking, it's probably still less useful than either of these tanks. Next up is Gatecrasher. Gatecrasher's an interesting one. It has really good stats, but like the mech itself is not fantastic. I'm gonna put this in C. Arguably below Brickhouse, just because at least Brickhouse serves some type of role, whereas Gatecrasher's just kind of just there to be whatever. It's like I said, it's got good stats, so it's kind of an all around, but it's not particularly good at anything. Now we get into Guardian. Guardian, I'm gonna put in A. This is one that you can max out if you want to. It's good if you play like with squad very helpful for, silencing enemies, but not necessarily a meta mech. Hemlock, I am going to put... I'm debating whether or not... I'm going to put it in A for now. And the reason is that even though it's, like, broken in 2v2, it's really only 2v2, right? So if you play free-for-all or CPC mostly, or even 5v5 really, Hemlock is not nearly as good, and it's not very practical in free-for-all. It's decent in CPC, but it's really mostly only good in 2v2, and I feel like unless you're a 2v2 main, then Hemlock's not really something that you need to get, but it's definitely something that you could get, and is a mech that I personally use competitively. Next up is Juggernaut. I would not recommend buying it, because it costs A coins, and it's immediately overshadowed by Ares, so it's like it's not even worth it. Arguably less worth it than Arachnos, believe it or not. I am sorry, Nihilus, don't kill me. Next up is Killshot. Obviously bottom of the barrel. No, I'm just kidding. This is one that you probably should get and you probably should rank up, but not necessarily max. It's basically going to be your fill-in Surge and or Nomad. Dash mechs are incredibly strong. However, the only one besides Killshot that you have that's not a legendary is Slingshot, and Slingshot obviously isn't going to cut it. So Killshot is going to be your best option for a while, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend maxing it out. Lancer, I'm pretty sure you have to buy it as part of the tutorial. I would say leave it, and I'll put it below Ares just because it's generally less useful than Ares. I mean, a lot more people use a maxed Lancer than they do a maxed Ares, I think, these days, but that's just for the memes, it's not because it's good. MD, I am actually going to put in the optional, and that's because it's the only team healer that exists. It's the only mech that can heal teammates. It's not, like, meta-worthy, obviously, and it never will be, but it does have that unique value that no other mech has. And I think that alone makes it a very valid choice, if that's the sort of playstyle that you like. But I would probably, I would put it below these, obviously. Next up is Nomad. Nomad is still, one of the top mechs above both of these, and an absolute menace to society. Nomad's one of the few mechs that's good in every game mode. Like, it doesn't matter what game mode it is, it's just going to be, like, kind of broken in all of them. Next up we got Onyx. Onyx is one that I think you can max if you want, just because stupid firepower. Now, it's probably rivaled by Blockhorn in terms of, like, the highest DPS in the game, with, like, energy capacity and ability damage included, but it's pretty close. I'm going to keep it below Guardian, though, because it doesn't really have any competitive advantage to it. It's just one that is pretty decent at max. It's just, not super ideal. May even move it later. We'll see. Orion, I'm tempted to put it S just because of all these shield mods that are out. Orion sounds kind of broken, and maybe it is, but I haven't really experienced it being that good. Even still, I will probably keep it at the back of S for now. Panther is definitely either A or S. Now, Panther's, like, only real downside was the fact that it had pretty low HP, and with mods around, it can take a hit. It can take quite a few hits. So arguably Panther's, like, incredibly strong if you have all of the, bells and whistles on it. Is it necessarily a top meta mech? I'm not really sure, but I will probably put it above Guardian at this point. Next up is Paragon. Paragon, I mean, just leave it. Lancer's probably better than Paragon. They both have, like, a mobility factor. Paragon obviously has much better energy capacity. Lancer just can get places that a lot of other mechs can't get to. But I suppose Lancer is very much overshadowed by Lacewing, and so just having something that's, like, reasonably fast that can wield the heaviest, like, weapon types. Something like a Helix 16 on Paragon, like, it could be kind of decent. So I'll put it above Lancer, why not? Next up is Puma. Obviously, it's the most OP. No. Definitely leave it. Don't upgrade it. In fact, probably don't even buy it, because I think it also costs 8 coins. It's much more worthwhile than Juggernaut and Arachnos, and probably even Cheetah, because it's pretty cheap. So even though, yeah, I'll put Puma at the front of F. Redeemer is one that I would say you could max if you wanted to. It's pretty solid. How it performs at, like, max level with all the mods and stuff, I'm not really sure. I imagine it's not the best. It probably lost some value. So you used to be able to, like, you know, get into a position, unload, like, missile racks or EM rifle, whatever, like some really high burst damage weapon, and then, you know, immediately backtrack and go back to safety. You can do that with mods, but it won't kill a lot of things because things have a lot more HP. So it probably lost some value. Even still, I'd probably put it above Onyx. Next up is Redox. Redox is absolutely garbage. Bottom of the barrel because it costs an arm and a leg and it's utter garbage. I mean, mods made it better, don't get me wrong, and it's actually not half bad in 2v2, but there's much better mechs. It's just not something that's worth getting. Scorpius, I'm gonna put in C, optional. Probably more useful than Gatecrasher just because the ability has, you know, a homing mechanic to it. Gatecrasher, it's pretty easy to miss, honestly. I'm probably still gonna keep it below Brickhouse, though, because, like, Brickhouse is a good, like, mortar platform and whatever. Helix is also good on Scorpius, but, like, you could put Helix on Brickhouse as well. With the damage boost from Brickhouse, you're dealing more damage than double Helix 16s with the 212s on Brickhouse. Even though Scorpius' ability pairs well with Helix, I would say Brickhouse is still arguably better. Next up is Sentinel. I suppose you could buy it, but I wouldn't bother upgrading it. It would be less of a stupid idea than any of the other three. With mods and stuff, it's a lot more likely that you'll be able to survive and make good use out of your shield. I mean, Ares still has just an objectively better ability shield, but at least, you know, at least Sentinel can take some hits, and it has more HP and stuff, so that's nice. Shadow, I would not recommend buying. I would put it probably at the top of F, just because I'm pretty sure the fastest thing that you have besides Shadow is Slingshot, up until, you know, you unlock Killshot Redeemer. And it's nice to have fast things, especially when you're new. You'll run into some issues, and dealing with, like, Helix and Mortars can be kind of tough without the stealth, but the Shadow's not worth buying. It's really bad. The damage output, the energy capacity is really bad, and yeah, it's just not going to be great. If you do buy it, then definitely leave it be, but I wouldn't even recommend buying it. Slingshot, technically you could rank it up once or twice after getting it if you wanted to. I'm gonna put it between leave it and rank it up. I'm gonna put it in optional. Again, Once you get it, you could upgrade it at some, just to fill that, like, beacon runner role. But it's not something you'd want to, like, max out, obviously. Stalker. I would say probably leave it. It wouldn't be the worst idea. In fact, quite possibly the best idea out of all of these. So, like, if you wanted to rank it up once or twice, wouldn't be that bad. But for the most part, I'd just leave it. Surge is, I would have to say, probably top of S. It used to be Nomad, but here's the thing. Nomad dies a lot easier now that mods are around, because it has to tank all of the damage that people are dealing to it while it's trying to kill people with mods. And, like, its ability damage goes into, you know, like, these shields and stuff. Surge doesn't have to take damage while while someone's EMP'd. And so long as your DPS is high enough, which, like, there are still weapons to kill things during a 4, maybe 5 second EMP duration, just put a duration implant on it, you don't have to take damage with Surge. Nomad, you're almost guaranteed to take some damage, sometimes quite a bit of damage. Next up is Tengu. I would not bother ranking it up if you were to get it. I think it's really strong when you get it, so probably it is worth buying, but I'd put it, like, probably here, between Ares and Sentinel. Zephyr is one that is really nice to get. It's really nice to buy, and I think it's pretty cheap, but I definitely would not rank it up, because even when you get it, it's pretty weak. It has a 3-second EMP duration, which is not really enough to kill anything. So I would put it probably here. Next up is Vortex. I'm gonna put Vortex above Aegis. I feel like it and Nomad are very close. I'm gonna keep Nomad in front of Vortex, but I think they're pretty close in terms of performance. Next up is Seeker. Seeker is probably, like, toward the bottom of S. It's definitely one that a lot of top players use. It's definitely used competitively quite often, but I feel like it's less of a necessity than some of these other things. Better than Eclipse, though, so I'm gonna put it there. Next up is Solus. Now, Solus is similar to Hemlock. However, it's slightly less broken in 2v2, but still, like, a lot of people use it in 2v2. But it's significantly better in a lot of other modes. So I'm tempted to put it in S, although I think I will probably put it just above Hemlock. And seeing this, I don't think Orion really belongs here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring it down and probably put it right above Panther. Okay, last two, we have Lacewing. I'm gonna put this in S, probably above Eclipse. Yeah, I'm gonna put it above Eclipse. It's really good in quite a few modes, honestly. It's not necessarily a must-have, but it's definitely one that, like, a lot of people use. And I mean, like, a lot of competitive people. Last one is Blockhorn. I'm going to put Blockhorn in A. It's definitely better than Onyx, better than Redeemer, arguably better than Guardian. Probably going to leave it here. I feel like it's close to Panther. Blockhorn has slightly more damage output with the ability, and it's also tankier. It's only like 1 kph slower. However, I feel like the shield, just in general, is not nearly as useful. I'm gonna move Onyx down, and I think I'm gonna move Guardian down as well. Guardian's one that like you can max if you want to, and like it's pretty good in like team matches, but that's only if you have the ability range implant, and I feel like that's not necessarily something that I should assume everybody has. It's definitely one that you should rank up though. In terms of Onyx, I feel like it's just objectively worse than Blockhorn, so I'm gonna move it down, and I'm tempted to move Redeemer down as well, because an interesting situation, because it's like, I think you should either leave it as it is or max it out, because the max perk is really good. But I don't think you should like rank it up once or twice and then leave it, right? In that case, I should probably put it in optional. You know, it's one or the other. It's kind of up to you. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't like leave it at rank 5 or rank 6. Like if you're gonna invest in it at all, I would go all the way with it. All right, so yeah. I think this is where I'm going to leave it. Obviously, I moved a few things around, but that's that. Like, this wasn't scripted or anything. Like, I didn't do practice runs of this. It's kind of just where I feel like things should go. And once again, this is based on like buying it and upgrading it. This is not necessarily a ranking of what's the most meta. I mean, these top 2 rows kind of are, but obviously Redox, a bit better than a lot of these things, but it's at the bottom because it's the least worth getting. And maybe some people will be upset with me by, not ranking things strictly in terms of performance, but I think it's for the best, because I would prefer somebody has a Redox and they see that I put it really low down and they decide to not upgrade it, rather than me putting Redox in like, the top, one of the top 2 or 3 rows just because it's a legendary mech, and then somebody sees that and they buy it, right? Plenty of other people can rank things based on performance, and I'm okay with that. But again, if I were to rank them based on like how OP they are, these top 2 rows would probably stay the same. So yeah, feel free to leave feedback. If you want to make a tier list of your own, then I have the link to this one that I made in the video description. Feel free to, arrange it however you want. Put a screenshot in my Discord, so you could rank them in terms of how much fun you think they are, or how meta you think they are, stuff like that. Go ahead. But otherwise, yeah, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.